What's up, gorgeous? Welcome to the Fierce Framework podcast, where we talk about becoming fierce through messy action, baby steps, and cultivating confidence. I'm your host, Mary Beth. I'm an ADHD kid with a dream to see more women breaking out of the box society tells us we're supposed to fit into and start living life more on our own terms. This podcast is designed to inspire you and give you practical steps to start living life aligned with your values and making regular progress towards your dreams. I believe the world benefits when you show up as your full self and you're living life lit up. So let's talk about how to do that. What's up, gorgeous? I'm so glad you're here. Today, I want to talk about fall and just the changing of the seasons and how natural it is for life to work in seasons. If you're on my email list, we've already started talking about this. If you want to be on my email list, I'll talk about my focus freebie later on in the episode. When you sign up for that, it's a free 5-day course on how to find your focus. You'll also get added to my email list, and so you'll get those regular weekly emails where we talk about all kinds of things from digging deeper into pieces of the podcast episodes to just completely new ideas that I feel like are important. Um, to life updates, just whatever is on my heart to share with you that week. So I highly recommend you join that. My email list is like, I love you as my podcast person, right? And we have a special bond for sure. And my email list are my people. So they get to hear about updates first, anything new that's going on. Like, that's my spot because I love written communication, okay? And they're like on my list, you know? So it's more of, I was gonna say community feel, but usually they don't like email each other. But anyway, it's the place to be. Shameless plug. Um, so yeah, you're on the email list. You've already heard about this, but we just started the conversation. So you're still going to want to listen because today we're talking way more in depth about it. Because I do like to keep it short and sweet on the email because I know everyone's busy. You don't have time to like read through a lengthy email. And it gives me an opportunity to learn and practice keeping my messages short and concise and like getting to the point and like delivering what I have to say and letting you go on about your life. Instead of on the podcast, it's more like relaxed. I feel like we're probably, taking a walk together, or maybe you're like washing the dishes or something. And I'm just sitting here like telling you about the things in your ear while you have something else to do. Reading is a little bit more like there's only so much you can do. So we scratched the surface. If you're on the email list, you're still going to want to hear this. If you're not, get on the email list. Okay, so I want to talk about fall. All right. I have a beautiful friend. She also has a podcast, Soulful Mamas. She's amazing. And she just talked about the spring equinox because she's in New Zealand. So the seasons are switched, but I love having her in my life. I'm on her email list too, because she reminds me to like that we're kind of designed to go at the speed of nature. And with the way just the world works, especially in America, especially just like in this like industrialized age, like we're go, 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 and everything's rushed and we're trying to do all the things. And we often don't give ourselves space for lulls or to like slow down or change things up even. It's like be consistent, keep going. Like it's like we're striving to be robots. We're striving to be machines. Like that's the goal in corporate America. And it's like, no, like, that doesn't work for us. That's why so many of us are burned out. Um, anyway, so I just love the reminder that, hey, it's actually normal and natural for us to kind of fluctuate and change things and be a little bit more in tune with the different seasons. And like I love now, like you if you've probably noticed on the podcast, right? I talk more and more about like seasons and cycles, and like things are not just a linear path. Progress isn't linear, growth isn't linear, life isn't linear. Okay. So I'm loving just like kind of embracing this idea that different seasons are supposed to look different, and that's good. Like, that's more than okay. It's how it's supposed to be, like at a nature level. So, fall, changing colors, shedding leaves. Okay. So there's a couple different things here. So different trees change colors at different times. They change to different colors. They lose their leaves at different times. Like, even though a lot of trees are going through a similar process, it still doesn't even look the same. Okay. And then you have evergreens who are just out here like, love that for you. Like, still, still living my consistent life. Okay. So what I want to do is just emphasize your journey does not have to look like anyone else's. If you feel like you're ready for a change, then I want you to embrace it. If you're an evergreen right now and you're like, nope, I'm good, I don't need to change anything, then don't. Okay. You don't have to like force yourself into a certain vibe because it's fall either. And also, like, just talking about my friend in New Zealand, it's spring there. So, you might not be in like a fall slowdown season, and that's totally okay. I'm going to be talking about it because I feel like it's topical. So if this isn't for you, no shade. Love you. We'll see you next time. Or, listen anyway, because I'm so fun. If you are in a season of change, change is hard. I want to acknowledge that. And it's also can bring up a lot of like fear and anxiety and just like concern about like, okay, how do I do this well? What if people think I'm like all over the place? As someone with ADHD who is all over the place, that has been a very familiar fear for me. I felt like I needed to be like so consistent, and I felt like I needed to be more than consistent. I felt like I needed to be the same. And so I want to help walk you through some of those things if you're in a similar headspace with that. It is important to be consistent. But we've talked about this before. I think a lot of the time, like, we picture consistency as being the same over and over again. So it's like if I'm being consistent on social media, I'm showing up every day at 8 a.m., full face of makeup, always positive, saying, being clear and consistent with my message, saying the same types of things, always staying positive. Like, that's our idea of consistent a lot of the time. And it doesn't have to be. I think that showing up is what makes us consistent. Okay. So if you are showing up on social media twice a week, and that's your thing, and you're consistently showing up twice a week, that's still consistent. If you're showing up and sometimes you're super positive and you're super happy and you have a great outlook, and then other times you're showing up and you're sad and you're frustrated and you're irritable, that's still consistent because you're showing up authentically. No one is happy-go-lucky all the time, and with everything going on in the world, that would be concerning. So I want you to like give yourself some grace with what consistency means and focus on continuing to show up and have that be your consistency. So whether that is showing up online, or you're building your email list, or you're showing up talking about what you offer in your business, continue to show up. And I would argue that showing up authentically is what I was going to say. Showing up authentically is going to be more compelling than trying to put a mask on. You can take it from me. I've done it for years. I thought I was like supposed to be this person. And so I kept trying to like push myself into this box and like be this person. And then it was like just a tiny part of myself that was like highly masked because I kept trying to be what I thought I was supposed to be instead of being who I am. So you're welcome. I am now my chaotic, lovely, hilarious self. And I am slightly annoying, but I'm also so fun. And then we've talked about this before. I don't want to get too much into it. That will also like Retrell and a pract. I can't today. Who let me have a podcast? Like, take this away. I'm sorry. I thought it was a good idea to like record this on a Saturday morning before I help a friend plan a party, because I was like, after, I probably won't. So let me be responsible and do it ahead of time. So you are reaping the treasures of mourning Mary Beth, who is fighting for her life currently. Okay. Oh, it helps with attracting and repelling when you're authentic, right? I'm sure, especially now that I'm not like faking it, trying to pretend I'm normal, I'm sure there are some people who take one look at me and they're like, immediately no, she can't even words. Like, why would I listen to her podcast? She can't even articulate what she's trying to say. Why did she think a podcast was a good idea? Couldn't be me, immediately no. Great. Love that for you. Because if you're like that, I will say particular about the message you're receiving and you need it to be delivered so perfectly, awesome. I am not your girl. Perfection is not my vibe. So yeah, save your time, baby. Like go find another podcast. I love that. I'm not there. And I don't like want to try to convince those people to listen to the podcast because they're going to hate it because they don't like my style. And then I'm probably going to be feeling constantly judged because I'm not living up to their standards. Okay. So I find so much more fulfillment in letting those people go. And then whoever does listen to my podcast, they love my quirks. They think I'm funny. It's so much more enjoyable and it's like a richer experience because there's like an energy match, right? Like you're my people, bro. I love that you're here. I love that like you go on my little ADHD rabbit trails with me that I used to edit out or like force myself not to entertain because I was like, you're on camera, you are public speaking, you need to like keep it together. And now you get to see my fun personality quirks. Aren't you so glad? So, bringing it back, there are a lot of benefits to being authentic, and I'm using that to help us define consistency. So, consistency is not showing up 8 a.m. perfectly every single day, it is continuing to show up as your real self, as a real person, not robot that you are, and sharing your message with whoever, So, if that is raising your kids and you're sharing the messages of how you love them and how you want them to grow up, you're being consistent, right? If that's your audience, if that's your customers, you're continuing to show up and you're being real with them and you're offering your services and you're sharing your message and what's on your heart. So that is the kind of consistency I want us to aim for when we're talking about consistency. It has nothing to do with perfection. It has nothing to do with showing up right on the dot the same time every single day. It doesn't even have to be every single day, okay? My podcast is every other week. Almost all of the podcasts that I listen to, have heard of, know people who host are weekly or more often. I don't know anybody who does less than weekly. I'm sure I've like heard of one, right? But I'm not doing that. I'm doing bi-weekly because that's how I can be consistent. So I share that with you to be like to encourage you that your consistency, like it doesn't have to be every day, it doesn't have to be every week. It's a routine that's working for you, that you're building with you and whatever it is you're working with, your audience, your customers, your family, your people. Okay. So when we look at consistency that way, my goal is that it'll be easier for us to embrace this kind of change while having a foundation of consistency. Because I think a lot of the time a fear of changing is that you're worried that people will think you're all over the place, that you're unreliable. So especially as a business owner, right? We don't want to be seen as unreliable or kind of like flighty, flaky. And I feel like that is especially a stereotype that we put on women because sorry, I feel weird because I don't talk about this stuff that often, and so I'm worried it'll feel like a little woo-woo. But as women, I feel like we're so fluid. And I think that's part of why like we struggle so much with, or society struggles so much with like trying to define us, trying to put us into boxes, like trying to put us into roles. and assigning us, like telling us what we should be, prescribing us what we should be, instead of allowing us to be ourselves because we're so fluid and hard to tie down. Because I think most of us are just, we're very creative and we're very adaptable, and like we have like ideas, and like we're always, I mean, even our bodies, right? Like change, our bodies shapeshift several times throughout a normal woman's life. And so if that's not like a blueprint for like permission for us to change throughout our lives, I don't know what else is. Okay. So but I think that like that's part of why we get this negative stereotype of like, oh, don't be seen as like flighty and indecisive and all over the place, because then you're like, she's not all there. She's a little crazy. She's a little eccentric. Yeah, yes, she is multifaceted, and that might be complicated for you. It might be confusing for you, but it's actually beautiful for a lot of people. And it's amazing how good she is at so many things. So that's what you mean when you're calling her flighty? Because if that's, yeah, then I agree, right? Like, okay, sorry. I just hate how we view and talk about women, and sometimes I get super pissed about it. And I'm passionate about it because it's something I've struggled with my whole life, especially like starting my business and not being sure what I wanted to do. It took me so long to start doing anything, which is why I'm so passionate about taking action. It took me so long to take a first step because I felt like I needed to decide and know what I wanted to do because I didn't want to be all over the place. And so I want to encourage you to like let that go as much as you can. I know it's hard, I know it's a journey, but like as much as you can let that go and just let yourself be multifaceted. Okay. We can talk more about like messaging and like, being consistent and like having a message. That's not what we're talking about today. But I think we like worry too much. And so we try to narrow ourselves down to like one facet. And it's like, sweetheart, you can have a couple, like, you know. um, so one of the ways I want to address being worried about like your audience not being able to keep up with you or people not knowing what you're doing, right? So I think like for me, the concern of allowing myself to change, of being multifaceted, is that I was worried that people I was trying to help would be confused about what I do. And that is a real concern. So yeah. Um, I always have to temper my messages, right? And be like, no, if you're a business owner, you don't want to literally be all over the place confusing your audience, but there is a balance as with everything. So while I'm encouraging us to be multifaceted, if you think that means that you should be doing 100 million different things in your business all at once, because I said, let's have a deeper conversation about it. Because it's not what I'm trying to say. But you know that, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to my podcast. So we're past that. So the biggest thing I want to say when you're worried about the people you want to help not being sure how you help them is that be consistent. Talk about what you're doing. So if you're at a place where you're pivoting in your business and you're doing something else, or or it's just a hobby that you're sharing with your customers, just like, hey, this is part of me. Communicate. Show up as your authentic self and communicate. I think sometimes we worry about like talking too much, and we worry about sharing too much, or that people will get sick of us like when we're sharing about like what we're doing. And first of all, like if we're talking social media, because I feel like that's usually where you hear that message, people aren't seeing all your posts. Okay. So if you're talking about this business you're starting, and you're talking about your business, you're talking about your business, you're talking about your business, this is what I do, this is how I can help you, this is who I help, this is what I offer. That's amazing. I love that. And then if you decide to offer something else, then talk about that too. Hey, I've added this on. I'm really excited about this new offering. There's a limited time I'm doing this type of thing. Or if it's a hobby, like, hey, I have this hobby and I just wanted to share like what my life looks like outside of work with you. I have this hobby that I'm pursuing and it's just like making me feel more alive. And so I just wanted to take this moment to encourage you to pursue your hobbies. Communicating takes away so much of that confusion. And I've told you so many times, like, hey, I'm trying this out, or like, hey, I feel like I'm just starting out and I'm not really sure where I'm gonna go with this. I'm there right now. I'm doing a vision board making event. I'm like, hey, I know I've never done events before. I'm bringing business owners together, whereas before I wasn't necessarily like focusing on business owners, but I'm doing a one-time event. This is what I'm doing, okay? And it doesn't mean that my business is now vision board making events. It's not. I still want to coach people to live their lives in a way that they feel alive. And I want to encourage women to like smash the box that society is trying to force you into because we're fluid, right? We talked about that. But I'm just communicating like, hey, this really felt like a cool idea. It felt like a lot of fun. It felt like something that people can get value out of. So I'm just going to run with this right now. And it's probably just going to be a one-time vision board making event for like the change of the season. I'm really into the change of the seasons right now. Okay. I'm in it. Um, like getting refocused for quarter 4. It's like finish quarter 4 strong and like feel like we're kind of back on track and kind of in control of where our lives are going so we can like gather our intention. Because I think a lot of time it's easy to like fall apart towards the end of the year and you're just like, I don't know. I had goals, I had plans, and it's just so I'm just surviving for the rest of the year. And I don't love that for us. Okay. So I think we can gather up our courage and kind of restructure the last couple months and live the rest of 2024 in a way that we can be proud of. And if I'm not a huge vision board girly. Like I don't see myself doing this all the time. Um, but I'm letting myself do it. Okay. And that's part of why I'm in this headspace of embracing change and encouraging you to embrace change because like it's gonna be so fun. It's next week. I'm so excited. It's gonna be a blast. Several people who are coming have expressed that they're excited too, which I love because that's the goal, because they're gonna have a great time. So yeah, you're allowed to do like side quests, okay? And it doesn't all have to be around your business. If it's a hobby or if you're like taking a step back from the business right now so you can do like apple picking with your kids and pumpkin patch, like do that. Like give yourself permission to embrace change, especially in this season. Like this is the best excuse. Like it is fall, okay? It's getting cold, okay? Like and I want to encourage you, if you need to do less, that's the perfect time. This is the perfect time, bro. This is cuddle weather. This is snuggle up with a blanket and a good book. This is warm beverage season. This is sit by the fireplace season. Okay. So, like, if you have been waiting for an excuse or permission to slow down, this is it. Slow down. Stop doing things. Do less. Snuggle more. Okay. Need t-shirts. Um, so yeah, if you want to try something new, just communicate. If you want to do less, also communicate. Hey, so we're always talking about our dreams and making progress towards our goals on this podcast. But what if you don't know where to start, right? Maybe you're so full of amazing ideas that you have a hard time narrowing it down and picking something to start with. Or maybe after years of not having a say, you don't even know what you like or what you want anymore. Either way, I got you, okay? I created a free course that's just for you. It's a 5-day training on how to find your focus. It's super easy because all you gotta do is you sign up and I'm gonna deliver a lesson to your inbox every day. The course is all about helping you hone in on what lights you up so that you can focus on one thing at a time and start making progress towards your dream. It's super easy to sign up. You can go to thefierceframework.myflowdesk.com/focus. I know it's kind of long. Thefierceframework.myflowdesk, that's my FLO desk.com/focus. I've also got the link in the show notes, or you can always DM me at the Fierce Framework and I'll hook you up. If you're doing less, if you're taking a step back, whether it's like your kids events. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need to take a step back from being involved in your kids' ballet. Just let people know, like, I'm taking a little break right now. I do a book club where it's a bunch of white women and we study racism and how to be anti-racist. It's very valuable. It's huge. We've learned a lot. We've grown a lot. It's a good thing. We're taking a step back from that right now. We're taking a break. And it feels terrible because it's like, who am I to stop doing this? And it's not like we're going to stop studying anti-racism. It's just like we're not meeting as a book club anymore. And so I'm very familiar with like all the fears that can come up, like, who am I to stop this? It's important, so I shouldn't stop. And like, what if, what if we don't start it up again? Or what if people think I'm okay with being racist? Like, no, it doesn't mean any of those things. Like, the seasons are good. So I also want to use this to encourage you, like, if you want to let something go, but you feel like you can't because it's a good thing, that doesn't mean you can't let it go. Not all good things fit in every season, and you can't do all good things. There are a million good things that you could be doing right now, and there's just no way for you to do them all. Okay? So, because something is good or valuable or educational or important, even those things we're not going to be doing every minute of every day of every season all the time. So I want to give you permission, even if something is good, it can still be done for a season. You can let things go. And that doesn't mean that you can't pick them up again later. We have every intention of meeting again as a book club and continuing on our journey because it's incredibly important. We have every intention of continuing on our journeys individually while we're not meeting as a book club. Like, it's very important for us, especially as white women, to be studying racism and how it affects Black people and especially Black women, because we keep like thinking we're equals, and it's like, no, we do not have the same struggles as Black women and women of color. And it's important for us to know that and to identify our privilege. So, no, we're not going to stop studying those things and educating ourselves, especially not with election season coming up, okay? Um, but like, it's such a good thing and it's so hard to let it go. But I've also seen myself included force things because it's good and then like ruin it, like taint it, because you're doing it with the wrong like spirit and the wrong intention. You're like forcing it, and it makes a good thing sour. You can even see the look on my face. I'm like picturing it. So just because you're letting something go, it doesn't mean you don't think it's important. It doesn't mean you don't think it's valuable. It doesn't mean you don't think it's good. But you are still allowed to let things go that are good because they don't fit in this season. So just like trees losing their leaves, like, they need those leaves for food. Like, that's how they get their sunlight, right? That's how they grow and they nurture themselves. But like, nothing is blooming all the time. Things in nature are dying all the time. Okay, I don't know how evergreens do it, whatever. Like, love that for them. But even like the pine cones, right? I'm totally not a botanist. But even the pine cones, like, they're not always growing pine cones, because I think that's the pine tree equivalent of a flower. My point is, you're not designed to always be producing and always outputting and always like go, 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 go. It is totally okay to take some time and do less. Maybe you need to sleep more. Maybe you need to get through that pile of books you've been wanting to read. Maybe you need to sit quietly and sip tea more often. Maybe you need to rest. And I want to just encourage you that that is so okay. And that is by design. Like, that's part of the cycle, that's part of the seasons. We all have those times when we're ready to slow down, and that's really what we need. And if this happens to be that time for you, which it might be for a lot of us because it's fall in the Northern Hemisphere, um, I want to encourage you to embrace it. And if you care about my opinion, I give you permission to slow down, to do less, to not feel guilt about letting go of good things, and to give yourself permission to pick them up later. It doesn't mean that you're never going to do that thing again. right? Like I might not do a vision board event again, but I might. And I will probably do another kind of event. I don't know what it's going to be, right? This is going to give me ideas for that. But it doesn't have to, like the things we do, we don't have to do in perpetuity. And the things that we set down, we are allowed to pick back up again later if we need to. So just, let yourself live, for heaven's sake. One point I did miss that I still feel is valuable is with the consistency, and especially like from a business perspective, I think it can be so valuable to have like a foundation or a base level. And we've talked about this in another episode of having like a bare minimum. And for me, especially as an ADHD person, like my energy is all over the place. So I have weeks where I feel like I can do all the things. And then I usually like start a bunch of new stuff. And then I have weeks where I feel like I can barely function. And then I feel like a failure because all those new things I started, it's like juggling a million things and then they just fall, right? And then maybe you grab one thing and you're like holding on to like I've I fed myself. And you're like, okay, cool. But like all these other things just boom. And now it's a mess because they all fell shattered to the floor. Love that. So what I've been trying to kind of embrace is allowing myself to have a bare minimum. So this podcast is bi-weekly, which I feel like is bare minimum. If I want to add on, I always can. And sometimes I'll do an episode every week. And that's great. But my requirement to myself, my commitment to myself is every other week. And then my emails go out every week. And that is my commitment to myself of what success looks like for me, basically, when it comes to like my requirements, my foundation for my business is those two things. And if I do those two things, then I give myself permission to be okay and to feel like I'm on track and I don't let myself beat myself up or feel guilty about not doing enough because I did the things. Now, if I want to do more, amazing, right? If I want to post on social media, so fun. Love that. If I want to do more than one podcast every other week, yes, add on, absolutely. But when I need to pull back and strip it down and do less, I've got the bi-weekly podcast and I've got the weekly email. So I'm in this season right now. I'm like, let's do an event. Like, let's do it. Perf. Love it. So excited. And it allows me to be excited and ramp up for it because I don't have to be bogged down with doing this in perpetuity, like for the rest of my life. Like, I don't have to worry about the next event because I'm just allowing myself to do this thing and then I'll probably be super exhausted after the event because, life events, um, in a good way, right? It'll be so fun. It's gonna be so exciting. I'm gonna get tons of ideas, and I just know how I am. I'm gonna need some time to like debrief after, and I know I can fall back on my podcast every other week and my newsletter once a week. And then if I want to add something else on or do something else exciting or branch out or be on someone else's podcast or just design a new coaching program, like yes, absolutely, like do that and you can always add on, but the consistency is you'll always have the podcast and you'll always have the newsletter, always, for this season, right? But like as people in my audience, like people who care about what I'm doing, people who want to stay in touch, like people who want to hear from me, like you can count on the podcast and you can count on the newsletter, and then everything else icing on the cake. It's bonuses. It's fun. It's random stuff from Mary Beth's chaotic ADHD mind. Um, like, but there's that level of this is my level. It's like a service level agreement, right? Like this is my promise to you. It's my commitment to myself. Like this is what you can count on. And then of course there's going to be fun, exciting bonuses. Of course there's going to be random stuff that I think of that I want to do. Like, yes, you're going to hear from me on social media and I'm going to do weird lip sync things with attitude because I think being sassy is hilarious. Um, and so I want to provide that to you as like a jumping off point for whatever you have going on. It helps with the consistency when you have a foundation of what you're doing. But I want to encourage you, like, don't let the foundation be so overwhelming, because I think a lot of the time we set a bare minimum so high. We're like, yeah, my bare minimum is a podcast episode a week, 5 social media posts on TikTok, YouTube, and an Instagram, 3 new sales calls. You have all these things, like that's your bare minimum. And it's like, okay, that's a full plate. So bare minimum is like not a full plate. Like, what can you do on a rough week? Especially because I'm usually speaking to women, right? So like I'm not gonna get into it, but we're synced with our cycles as well. So it's totally normal for us as women to have really good weeks and really rough weeks every single month. So how can I design my bare minimum around what can I do on a really rough week? What can I do? Like, what can I get done? And then that is my standard. Instead of what I feel like we tend to do is on our best weeks with our most energy, we're like, what can I do now? At my absolute best when I have everything I need and I'm ready to like take over the world. And then we use that as our standard. And it's amazing that we can do all that, but we can't do all that all 4 weeks of the month. You can't do that for every season. It's not good for you. You'll burn out. So if we are able to use the bottom, where we're at the least energy, where things are kind of the roughest for us, what can you do then? You can use that as your foundation and everything else is gravy, because other things are gonna come, right? You're gonna get ideas, you're gonna get excited about things, you're gonna want to do things, you're gonna want to participate in things, and do that. Add that on in those moments when you have capacity. But don't have your foundation be your best week and your most productive and have that be what you're aiming for all the time, because it sets us up to be overwhelmed and burnt out and then disappointed with ourselves because we're not reaching that, because it's not always attainable. You're 100% giving your all doesn't look the same every day. We're getting a little off track. Okay. So let's bring it back. If you're in the season of change because it's fall, that's what we're talking about. I'm reminding myself, not you. If you're in the season of change, I want to encourage you to embrace it. And especially if you, like the leaves, are letting things fall away and setting things down, that's okay. And if your fall doesn't look like somebody else's, you're a pine tree or you're in the southern hemisphere and it's spring for you, embrace that too. Not everyone's journey does not look the same. You're on your own journey. Keep your eyes on your own paper. And I just hope that you give yourself permission and grace to embrace whatever this season is bringing you, whatever you want this season to mean for you. Um, because I think it's so important to allow yourself to fluctuate and to have seasons of change and setting things down and letting things die and letting the leaves fall off and doing less. And that's valuable. It's okay, but even more than that, it's valuable. So thank you so much for joining me today. I loved having you here. Thank you so much for coming on my ADHD journey with me while I was like squirreling all over the place, especially at the beginning. I just trust that like you love me because I love you. So if you don't, if you absolutely hate it and it's like too much, then let me know. I am open to feedback. Okay. I'm just in this place where I'm trusting that it's working for my people. But if it's like just too much or distracting, then I want to balance accepting myself and being quirky, but I want to balance that with growing and getting better at being a podcaster and like growing in my craft. Sounds so dramatic. Um, yeah, so I do want to improve while I'm embracing like who I am. So if there are things that are like, yeah, that's not quirky and cute, that's just annoying and distracting and it makes it hard to hear your message, let me know. Okay. I'm all about the communication. So you can leave a comment on YouTube, Spotify, pretty much any podcasting platform. You can always DM me on Instagram or TikTok. I'm at the F.I.E.R.C.E Framework. And I love hearing from you. So whether that is podcast episodes ideas that, translate that to English as you will. Video idea, just whatever. Just whatever. Drop me a line. I want to hear from you. Just let me know what you're not doing. Let me know what leaves are falling off. Let me know what colors you're turning, all the good stuff. All right, I'm gonna stop talking because it's weird. I hope you have a lovely rest of your week, and I will see you so soon.